Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We are going to have session 3 for this conference. As we know, there are more and more cities, more and more urban population, and the cities around the world are facing more and various challenges and problems. So the city government, enterprises, individuals, social institutions, they are all acting to dealing with all these challenges and problems. Of course, we need technical solutions, but since all these challenges and urban societies are so complicated, so all solutions should be consistent and integrated. So in this session, we are going to discuss the technical solutions and holistic approaches for sustainable cities. Please let me first introduce the participants for this session. My name is Xu Lin. I'm going to be the moderator and the speaker for this session. We have keynote speakers, Mr. Christoph Martinetter. He is from Austria. He is Vice President, Austrian Federal Economic Chamber. Mr. Christopher has acted as Vice President of the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber since 2009. He is very experienced in economic policy making, in dealing all these kind of very comprehensive and complicated problems. We missed one participant from Egypt. He got problems in visa. So today we have only 5 of us. Then Mr. Aaron Viljarger. He is a mayor of Tirana, Albania. Mr. Aaron Viljarger, he was very young, but he seems very experienced in politics. So even he was very young, he has been acting as a lot of leadership in different organizations. Currently, his current position is mayor, but he was elected as a member of the Albania Parliament in 2013. He is very good in different languages. He had very good knowledge of English, Italian language, and German and French. Then we have a very senior official from a company, right? SAP. Madame Elisabella Georgia Sikoviza, right?
Very much so, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, he's very good in leading the company's public service department. He's now holding the position as a global general manager in public services. She is very experienced in public services on behalf of the global enterprises, a global company. So he has a lot of knowledge in dealing with all these kind of public and social challenges. Then we have a very young professional, Ms. Zhang Jirong Joy. She is currently the Deputy Director General, Finance Center for South Cooperation, based in Hong Kong, China. She used to be professionals in the financial sectors, so she's now using her talents and professional knowledge in providing the services in the South cooperation. That's my introduction for all the participants. So please welcome keynote speaker, Mr. Christopher Masnetter.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, distinguished mayors from different cities, honored international participants, ladies and gentlemen. We are speaking today about the city of tomorrow. One thing is clear. On this earth, we are approaching the number of 10 billion human beings on earth. We have the big challenge of the climate change and energy coming from a carbon time which is not, we cannot spend out for the next decades. And it's clear that the solutions for all these problems cannot be provided in full space on the Earth's surface. So the main part of the people and even the economy has to join in urban regions and urban areas. And there we need solutions to organize these parts of the earth in a way that it's smart, intelligent, well organized, decarbonized, and are places in which living standards hold the people there and give them the possibility to produce all this value that we need to support the whole humanity of 10 billion inhabitants in 2050. The city of the futures have many challenges, but also opportunities. Opportunity one, it's simpler to organize on one place for many people the same thing than in a broad network in different areas. In Europe, we have many efforts to make the life in the European cities at the quality and on the standard that the people live there in security, in a possibility to live without air pollution, with all necessities from drinking water to the waste system well organized. It's like an European dream, and we have many examples how mobility, energy, construction, quality of life can be organized there. For this panel, it's clear to make these solutions, you need both technology and the human factor to build sustainable and smart cities for the future. Innovation in a broad sense is therefore key to shape our future cities and make them livable centers of productivity. And it's a good idea for the UNIDO to have their seat and their headquarters here in Vienna. So you have the possibility to coming here to this conference to look a little bit to the example that Vienna, as a approximately 2 million inhabitant city, gives for life, for economy, and for simple stay there as tourists. Look at these, and I will make a few remarks then what parts of smart city concept you can reach here in Vienna. The concept of smart city, it's a combination at the end of the day of infrastructure and city planning, energy supply, how the mobility is organized, and the quality of life. And these need a system there, one part is helping to each other. I came later back to the example of Vienna. And these challenges and the solutions in that direction, livability, how to deal beyond Industry 4.0, how to deal with the big data problem, how to do the decarbonization of the society and making a green environment, and how to organize responsiveness, like in the concept of Professor Schmidt from the Technical University of Zurich. We come in, next slide, it's possible. It's normally, the next slide will be a little bit of Vienna. This is nearby here to the United Nations city here in Vienna. It's the Seestadt, so lake city named, is a big area now constructed as showcase how can be organized city life in the next decades in the frame of a smart city. We have that in total 240 hectares, and there will be in 2028, so in 10 years, 10,500 quality housing units for over 20,000 people and up to 20,000 jobs on one place. The project is one of Europe's biggest projects in towns. It's a new constructed area in the city. And to realize it, strong partnerships was done between the private sector and the public hands. There are several concepts in this project organized in PPPs or organized with partners in private companies. Examples for this, for example, to construct a house with about 100 meters tall, completely built in wood. So you use another materials with only a fraction of the carbon use for the construction. It's light. You have a very good living situation inside because the biological climate situation in a wooden construction is every time better than in steel and concrete. And you have new possibilities who are examples also for other regions in the world where you have cheap wood nearby. You have not to transport the cement across the globe, and where you can use the wood, and also the wood not usable for normal construction with whole pieces, because it's a form of using small parts of wood and to make it then new pieces in constructing this. This is one example. A clean energy system. If you look at the next slide, this is not a museum for modern art. No, back one. If you haven't seen it, it's from here about 3 kilometer line in the northwest. It's not a museum of arts. It's waste incinery. In the middle of the town, you have short ways to deliver the waste from the households on the industry. Then you have an incinery here where you use the thermal energy direct for the heating purpose in 100,000 households in Vienna. So the effectiveness of such a system is you have the waste completely reused in this facility, and you use the primary energy directly for thermal purpose. So in the effect, you have a solution for two problems. If you have a city with growing mountains of waste, there is no any mountain mehr there. And if you have the problem of heating or cooling in the situation of air pollution and to using petrol or carbon, you can use such a system to make on a renewable base, green energy base, and you have a solutions for two problems. There is no waste living Vienna, no waste living the city and the area of Vienna. Even toxic waste rests are reused in the city. There is the ABS, it's a facility in the southeast of the city, where also all toxic materials on a high temperature procedure and also plasma incinery is reused and make it in a form to reuse the components and parts, and for the real small rest to deposit it in small quantities. Also the water. Vienna is taking with 3 pipeline systems from the Alps, about 150 to 200 kilometers, drinking water directly from the mountains. And all households in Vienna, but also industry and small business, are provided a high quality water from the pipe. And you can drink it, even make a blind test with the big brands like Evian, Perrier and other ones, and you will remark that you can have it delivered from the pipe at home. And the wastewater is completely cleaned in the area of the city. So the water would go out to the Danube, is drinkable water, and you have no toxic components in it. So you have a complete circle that all the waste produced in the city stay in the city, are reused for energy, for water, and for other purposes. And the city is not a pollution object to the surrounding. So you have minor conflicts with other regions surrounding your city because the concept is one of sustainable progress in the development. If you're looking for the mobility, the problems, we can speak about it. There's every time also the ranking where the traffic jam is the highest one on earth. We have to solve this problem. And logistic and transportation is one of the crucial factors how to organize economy and living. And it's clear that one big part is transportation on public mass transportation systems. We need to reinvest, for example, in all the railway connections. This is on the way. Many countries have made big efforts, especially also China. If we're looking there at the last decade, which have bring back the system of railway transportation. Now, one of our challenges, how to make all these connections between Europe and Asia. And one part of them is the Belt and Road initiative of the Chinese government, which gives now the perspective to make a whole development from China, Central Asia to Europe. One important project is for us that we use the standard of the Russian railway, Trans-Siberian Railway, to make a direct connection between the center of Europe and China. On the Chinese side, we have the connection in the time to Harbin, to the logistics center in the northeastern part for heavy industry, and now is in constructing the railway to Chengdu for the Western China industrial sectors. But we need on the other side the Russian railway system and on the border between Ukraine and Slovakia. And we need to join these 340 kilometers here to Austria to make here a big logistics center and to make a 7 days connection for all goods between China and Europe. On the other side, we have to find solutions how to use and how to organize the transportation in the city. Today there was a workshop about shared economy and the possibilities between bicycles from China and cars, self-driving cars, and share them. I want to speak a little bit about how to use the mass transportation, how to can improve the mass transportation system. What you will, if you're not the first time in Vienna, you have certainly remarked we have many, many tramways here across the city. It's not normal in many cities. They have the tramway system from years ago has been deconstructed. There's only buses. We use it intensive. We have a subway network, which is the clear first solution for every mayor on the world. If there's not enough place on surface to organize it, you wanted to go in the third dimension. It's the underground. And it's clear you need huge investment there. It's a technical challenging to make big holes in the ground. Even as an Austrian guy, I was told this, the new Austrian tunneling method is one of the most important technical approach how to drill big holes in the earth. There was even one time a question of an Indian minister why we have a bird in our flag and not an animal who digs normally holes. So the answer is, we know to do it, but it's also clear that the third dimension is not only underground and subway. There is another solution, and the next solution is to go upwards. So you can use not only for helicopter service for 10 people in 5 skyscrapers. There's a solution to make the subway on the top of the city. And these are solutions who are cheap. They have, in reality, they need only really small places on the surface, and you have huge capacities to use it. I had the occasion with our federal president Heinz Fischer, former federal president, to visit La Paz in Bolivia, and he was there in the same with Evo Morales. They constructed this in 14 months, a subway network in air. These are solutions which are really for cities with the problem of the traffic on surface, not without solutions, with bicycle, people going there, cars, and there is not enough place on surface. You can go higher, and you don't need to have huge investments with planning horizons of 20 years. This can be done in 14 months, 15 months. Why is existing this technology? They are coming from the Alp inhabitants, like in Switzerland, Austria, Italy, and France, because the problem was how to solve the problem to go with ski. So you need systems with high capacity to bring the people from down the peak. And this, you have a development of 5 decades to make the best solution in public transport. And then someone comes to the idea, but why we do this only for skis? Why not to do it in cities? And now it's in place. And especially in Latin America, this is one of the best solutions if you have transportation problems and with very little footprint on the ground. This is the possible solution. Connectivity, maybe we can a little bit look at the pictures there. This is La Paz on the right side. And it's really cheap transportation for the poor population of La Paz. It's usable like the bus. And there are also the situation in La Paz, if you don't know it, they go from 3,000 meters to 4,300 meters on El Alto, where's the airport. So also the problem of the big difference in between the city parts can be the solution. This, because the other solution in La Paz would be a subway with turning in curves in the mountain to reach really 4,300 meters. And this solution is cheap and functionable for all kinds of forms. Sustainable buildings. I spoke about, this is the wooden skyscraper I talked before, completely constructed in wood, and gives a solution which is really saves 50% of all construction materials and 90% of CO2. And can be done with local materials, because you need also soft wood. It's not, you don't need the hard wood, which is expensive. You can use the soft one. And the assembling is simple, and it is constructed like fixed parts with concrete, but it's wood and completely formed. Maybe we can start a little bit. I think there's a video from Vienna for the smart city.
Vienna is a vibrant city full of opportunity. As the city grows, it's preparing to meet new challenges as a smart city. To maintain the city's high quality of life, we must radically preserve natural resources by seeking both social and technological innovations for the city, from within the city. Smart City Wien means putting the focus on people, recognizing interconnectedness, listening to each other, and working together, considering the needs of today, tomorrow, and future generations. Vienna needs you, me, all of us together to become a city for the future, where a good life is possible for everyone.
So, my invitation for you is look at Vienna, visit this. All of our city government is inviting you, if you are interested, for waste solutions, for example, for transportation solutions, use it. You're speaking on the level of communal politicians with the administration here, not with the companies. They want to sell only their product. To look at the solution done, and many of them are done by the public hands. Also, all what I declared before for drinking water, wastewater, waste incinery, transportation, public transportation is all in public hands, 100% in public hands. It's not private companies. So the invitation is to you, look at this example, then you can ask and see what's the experience, and also they give advice to other cities. There's a special agency from the city of Vienna, Tina. If a city tells we want help, we want to install this also in our country, then you have direct help from the city of Vienna. And on the other hand, there is a state research institute, the Austrian Institute of Technology, IIT. It's in the public hand of the Federal Republic of Austria. And they also provide complete smart city concepts for you. So you can directly say, okay, we want to plan the next 50 years for our city. We want solutions for energy, transport, new areas where we want to construct combined for living and working solutions like Seestadt Aspern. You can ask the IIT to make complete concepts for you that you can then offer to the public decision makers to say, okay, this is a solution, it's proved, it's possible, you have all the studies at hand, and then you can ask for the financing self. We have to solve this, and we cannot only solve this and we use all technology yet there and provided by the companies in all regions of the world. Austria is a small part of this, but you can get, especially for green energy transportation solutions, you can get here good solutions on a cheap way. They are normally not big enterprises, so you are not in the hand of one concern. So normally you are in a situation that you have partners there. And my invitation also from the side of the Federal Chamber of Economic Affairs is also make a direct contact. We provide you directly with experts to say, okay, these guys can help you for the solution for your problem. So this invitation is done, and I hope that our children will live in these smart cities, happy, not observed by big data, and also in the situation to say it was the right decision of our parent generation to make sustainable city and not to go and escape on small islands, because the rest of the earth is not livable anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christoph. Mr. Christoph gave us a very impressive presentation on how a city like Vienna to dealing with the problems like waste treatment, transportation, and a lot of other things. He introduced a concept of dream city, of European dream city, and what kind of components should such a dream city have. He gave us political and technical solutions to make the city more livable, and the city should be human-centered. Thank you, Mr. Christoph. Then we're going to have Mr. Aaron Viljarger from Albania.
Okay, thank you very much. I know it's always difficult to listen to a panel right after lunch, but if you would bear with us, maybe it will become interesting. It reminded me of this joke from Lyndon Johnson, where every time he thought things were very stressful, he would tell himself as president during the civil rights movement that things could be a lot worse. He could have been mayor. So I am the mayor here, and if you think life is bad, it could be a lot worse. But jokes aside, I wanted to talk a little bit and also maybe have an alternative presentation to our friend from Vienna. Mind you, we don't all get to run cities that were the former capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So a lot of the old money that comes from having your city conceptualized by Franz Josef is not quite a feature we all have the luxury to taste. But I think the opposite is also not true. Not everything is about megacities. The megacities of China and the megacities of the United States and Mexico and a few other megacities. In the end of the day, all of them combined make up only for 40% of the urban population. So I still think that 60% of the population has this challenge to meet in mostly mid-sized cities, 1 million and less, and I think with a lot more modest means than being a capital of a former empire in Europe or being heavily funded and subsidized by the European Union. So, you know, once you listen to this prognosis, then you say, my goodness, you know, how do other cities survive? I think there's a lot that one can do with a lot of creativity and also with a lot of the right thinking. I think this whole concept of the climate change has really been something that our generation has been struggled with, but never really taken very seriously. It really feels like, you know, the person who jumps from, you know, a skyscraper 100 stories high. For the first 99 stories, you think you're flying. It's only in the last bit that tragedy happens. And I think many of us think we've been flying for too long and taking it easy on nature for way too long. And I think we literally are facing the sort of that bottom floor where tragedy is about to happen unless everybody takes some decisive decisions. And again, I think the majority of the cities at stake happen to be mid-sized, smaller cities, not necessarily with the fortunes of the European Union. So how do you deal in those situations? I understand the whole concept of the assistance that is out there, of the UN, but I think a lot of the responsibility is with the local leaders. And I'll tell you what I mean. How many of you had breakfast today? Can I see your hands? The majority? You know, it's a bit like having a breakfast of ham and eggs. In a breakfast of ham and eggs, the pigs are committed, but the chicken are involved, right? Because the pigs have their own skin, their own flesh in the contribution of the breakfast. The chicken have only given a few eggs and they'll do those so tomorrow. So I think it's a bit like the difference between involvement and commitment. The UN is involved. Mayors, local leaders, they have to be committed. They have to leave a piece of their own flesh in order to materialize sort of this metaphorical breakfast that I'm talking about. So I think ingredient number one is to have committed leadership. I see a lot of politicians who spend most of their time, you know, acting and thinking like they're TV analysts, giving opinions. That is not the number one job. Number one job is to make decisions. You know all the facts and you have to make decisions. Otherwise, you're just one of the many who has occupied the seat, given some decent opinions and some quotes, but never really made a decision. So I think commitment versus involvement, committed leaders is, I think, rule number one in the game. When we took over the city of Tirana about 2 years ago, we found sort of this, it really looks like a lump, like an amoeba. It's trying to spread itself into the green territory. So rule number one is, how do we contain sprawl? And again, this is we are products of the decisions we make. So once we make a decision not to expand and not to continue with the sprawl, but make sure that healthy density happens within the city limits, that is rule number one. So first preserve, what is already out there that hasn't been contaminated with the urban sprawl. Another thing that we calculated is that some of this green agenda, we've been working with the EBRD on the Green City Action Plan, can actually be very easily quantified. And I think it's so easy that even kindergarten children can understand. For example, the carbon offset of one car is equal to 2 trees. So I think it's very easy for any mayor to count the cars registered on their own city and make sure that during his tenure or her tenure, they plant twice as many trees as those cars. And you don't have to be Vienna or New York or London or Chicago or any of these sort of high-flying, or Shanghai, high-flying cities, mega cities. Any city can do this very basic math and enter into a race, into a healthy competition to compete with the offset from the cars and public transport. Second, open space. How do you preserve open space? We should have brought pictures of how a lot of these spaces we had found them before, but many of them were, Albania was like North Korea until 1991. So the whole country, the whole city of Tirana had 200,000 people and only 17 cars. So only the Politburo and maybe some generals from the army. Yeah, things have changed now. We have about 1 million people and 200,000 cars. So the number of cars grew more than 15,000 times. Then we ran a little calculation with people in which we said, what is the most important thing in your life? Because it also has to do with the system of values. And the majority of people say, of course, my children are the most important thing in my life. What do you think? And we say, well, if your children are the most important thing in your life, would you agree that the majority of your income would be spent on your child or your children? They'd say, yes, of course. Then we ran a little calculation and we found out that from a place that had no cars, living in the most oppressed, isolated communist system, in 25 years of casino capitalism, we were spending more of the average income on maintaining a car than a child in the city of Tirana. So basically between the purchase of the car, the price of gas, the price of insurance, fixing of the car, we were spending more than one to raise a child. So not only an urban problem, but also a moral problem, a system of values that all of a sudden shifts without even taking permission for us or without us even acknowledging or voting for it or having a referendum. And all of a sudden we see how not only our urban landscape changes, but also our system of values changes. Then we took this project, again, I owe you our next presentation, but this was the largest roundabout for cars in the heart of the city. Now it's a beautiful square. You can see how busy it is on a normal day. But this was the largest roundabout where we had about 100,000 cars every day turn around just to make up their mind which direction they were going in the city. You know, one day we decided to turn this whole area pedestrian. Of course, like all of these decisions in democratic countries, they generate a lot of hysteria. There's always a loud minority that vehemently opposes these things. But like I said, we are products of the decisions we make. So now we turn the largest roundabout and most toxic area in the Balkans in now one of the cleanest pedestrian spaces in the city. And once the hysteria is over, then people love it. All of a sudden, you've given lungs in the heart of the city that otherwise was a pedestal for metal pieces that otherwise we call cars. And then I think the issue of we have a lot of smaller cities that cheat a lot in these environmental projects. They say, well, you know, once we have surrounding forests and mountains, they should offset whatever mess we do in the city. It doesn't work that way. I mean, this is a communicating vessel. So I think one of the ideas that a lot of cities of our size with very modest means are experimenting is urban forests. So basically foresting an area right in the heart of the city and producing some very high quality green space, we think walking distance from the majority of the neighborhoods of the city. And this is how a lot of the spaces look now that were otherwise dedicated for cars. The whole concept built and they will come is also true for people. Now, if we were to build cities around cars' personalities, if you own a car, you know the car's personality. A car wants to be alone. It doesn't want to have others on the left, on the right. It wants to have a free range to go fast. Well, we people are not like cars. We have a different personality. We like to be together. This is why we convene in rooms like this, so we can be with each other. Otherwise, we'd all be in our cars and watching this through a screen. And I think once we have this in mind, then we start design cities for people rather than the cities for cars and metal boxes. This is what a lot of these spaces look now. Now, when it comes to modes of transport, I think the only good news about underdeveloped cities with modest means is that you can leapfrog. Now, it's easy to come to Vienna and say, oh my goodness, they've had the tram for 200 years. So you know, it's easy to go into depression because it shows you got 200 years to catch up to. No, you can simply leapfrog and you find out the latest of what is out there in technology. And I think Vienna is now going towards electrical buses, many parts in Europe. So we have just ordered major tests this month in the city of Tirana with a fleet of buses, some from China, some from Europe. And I think the great advantage of technology is that you can immediately catch up with whatever is the most recent innovation rather than go through the 200 years of run-up exercise. We just introduced a large fleet of electric taxis, and I think we're encouraging and incentivizing a lot of the transport companies to embrace this whole future of electricity. And I think in a country like ours, although modest in its economy, but with 100% renewable energy, only through hydropower, it concludes the cycle by also entering the transport system in an otherwise already green energy production place. So Now, other means of technology, one thing that we took for granted for too long, and I know a lot of cities in Latin America and Africa and Asia, is this whole question of parking. You know, no politicians wants to charge for parking because it's almost a sacrilege. Well, rule number one, I told the people who voted for me, I said, parking is not a human right. Parking is actually occupying someone's piece of property to leave your car. That piece of property, on the majority of the cases, happens to be to the public. The mayor is the administrator of the public property. Therefore, just like you rent space to park any junk you want in your life, so you do with the city. So in the beginning, you have a big row. And I know those of you who come from Western countries are wondering what is he saying. But those of you who come from the global south are nodding to at least give me a hint that I'm making sense. People were saying, well, parking was free until we elected you as a mayor. And I said, was parking really free in a city that only has 4,000 parking spaces above ground and 200,000 cars? No. First, it was free only for the first 4,000 who occupied them for all day. So the rest of the 196,000 had to spin in circles until they found a free parking space. And even those who claimed they found free parking was actually dealing with people in the black market who would put all kinds of hurdles in the street to make you charge for parking. So parking was never really free. And if you really want to enter the heart of the city with a 30,000 euro car, then you better be able to pay at least €1 for parking. But it's amazing the magic that charging for parking can do. And if you don't believe me, read The Economist. I think 2 months ago, it had a whole feature on the revolution of parking and how some of these issues that really seem taboo and get people in the global south, so Eastern Europe or Africa or Latin America, all wound up. It really is a magic wand in terms of getting people to think than to go and buy bread or to go from one cafe to the other cafe. You don't really need a car, you can easily walk. And I think it also speaks to people's natural state of being. You know, birds are birds because they fly. Fish are fish because they swim. People are people because they sit behind a wheel, or is it because they walk and they run? And I think only recently have we skipped this part of the evolution of the species. Because I think in normal times, the evolution would require us to walk, bike, exercise, run, and not sit, behind a car. And then when you combine parking with charging your car, then it really becomes a cool project that even Vienna does not have, I'd like to say. I'm just kidding. All right, but I can go endlessly for this. But one last feature I wanted to say is that, again, how technology does wonders, even in places like Eastern Europe or Africa or Latin America. This is a little app that I have on my phone, but this is a large room for me to show to everyone. But basically, we have 20,000 users that on any given time of the day, they can point at something that goes wrong with the city. So whether it's a burned light, street lamp, or whether it's a broken tree, or whether it's a missing manhole, or whether it's trash that hasn't been picked up, you take a picture of the pile of trash. It has your automatic GPS. It will send to a dispatch. You can even put a note like, "You filthy mayor, go and clean up this junk," whatever you want to say to vent your anger. And then it will go to a dispatch, and immediately a crew will go and fix it. You will get a push-up picture on how it was fixed and how the city acted on your challenge to regulate something. It has cut over 120 inspectors that are not jobless, they're doing other things. But we don't have to physically send people and find how things get broken in the city, because the whole community every day responds to issues that go wrong and otherwise feel like mini mayors in their own little neighborhood of whatever goes wrong. And I think the power that you give a citizen to report and to actually see it change and fix, it's an amazing exercise also of democracy. First, it helps them realize that they matter. And they run the city because they point to something. People even now have an option where they can vote of what things they want to get fixed first in their neighborhood. Second, it gets them to really think and understand the huge challenge of what it means to run a city. That it's not just about pinpointing the things that go wrong, but some physical person has to go and fix this. And I think third, it gets people to realize that democracy is not a sport that you play every 4 years, but it's something you exercise every day and sort of see some of the results. So this is some of the few opening remarks, and if there's some questions, I'd be extremely happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In China, we have a kind of say that mayor is a nightmare. Because a mayor, as a mayor, you know, he has to dealing with so many, you know, different unseen problems. But Mr. Aaron introduced what he has taken as a mayor to dealing with so many problems caused by, for example, the car increases in the city. He is very good in dealing with, you know, adopt technical solutions. Of course, yeah, he made very good progresses. But he still showed us he is very good in political skills because he knows how to make the people believe in, especially the voters, to believe in and support what he has done. Thank you very much. Next speaker is Miss Isabella. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And I think the point of technology was a really, really good segue to the perspective I would like to offer in that discussion here. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are, and we all see probably the same thing, is we are at an inflection point when it comes to cities. And the inflection point comes from more and more people. We heard that this morning, more and more people are moving into cities. We're going to have the majority of population sitting in cities in a couple of decades from now. So we can't resolve any challenges, global challenges, if we do not address and resolve the challenges that cities have. And the urbanization is intensifying those challenges, such as environmental pollution, pressure on transport, congestion. We heard a lot about that. Management and aging infrastructure. And we also see that we have more and more citizens demanding, first of all, personalized services, because they are used to it from a day-to-day dealing with all this stuff and being able to order online and being online. And I probably, to a certain extent, disagree with the fact that we human beings liked and tend to be together. What we experience more and more with the young generation nowadays is, yes, they are standing together, but they are just talking to those devices instead to each other, to a certain extent, right? So technology plays really a big role here. And the technology at that point is the accelerator, because technology is part of putting the pressure on the system, but also offers a lot of solutions to the challenges that cities have, and I would like to offer a couple of perspectives. With technologies, business models and business processes are changing very fast. Now, think about, we are talking about fixing roads. A couple of years from now, we may be talking about flying things by drones. So do I need to fix all potholes if I'm be able in a couple of years to fly things around? Or the other question is, if I'm exporting goods, can I in future export IP? How can I get the work to the people instead the infrastructure to the people first? Is there anything where we can talk about leapfrogging by doing the next generation of things? If you look at the lifespan of businesses had got down from 30 years to 4 years now. And I need to make the remark here, we are founded in 1972, it is 2017, and I'm sitting here on stage. So we are not part of that average. However, we have transformed our business as well a couple of times, and we are doing so going forward with our customers. But what we also see is the business models. The other part is business processes. When you look at the prediction, the majority of processes is going to disappear as we know them now in the next decade. So that is really something that's changing dramatically. So the sense of urgency and the inflection point for cities is that how they are running their processes, how they engage with citizens, and how they engage with businesses in the cities is changing dramatically. Now, when we look at the part of smart is typically tends to be said in one breath with sensors and big data. And this is really a very valid point. However, we would like also to offer another dimension. And the other dimension is sitting at a conference with Australian cities. The first address they made is not only the front-end operations with sensors and data and dealing with transport, but also the efficiency of their own organizations as such. Following the private sector, the public sector cities also need to look at business model and business process redesign while they are embarking on the journey towards the future. And this is coming with a great side effect, which we also notice when we engage with cities. Thinking about the future and engaging about future models and future technologies, cities get a really sound understanding of the art of the possible and how to deal with it. And with that, cities are very much front-running private sector, and they can give guidance and regulations. And this is going to be imperative for the future to be ahead of that curve, because setting those regulations after the fact is with the spin of technology nowadays not really an option. So the one part is how cities address their own efficiency, their own processes, and already there you can look at machine learning, artificial intelligence, how you integrate that into the overall scenarios. But the other part is to take the decisions in the front line. And the decisions in the front line are asking two questions. First, which technologies do I want to use and do I want to adopt to support my challenges? Here, public can really get inspired by the private sector. When you look, for example, at banking and consumer, these guys are using mass data, mass transactions, and are dealing frontline with customers. So you can use predictive and analytics, for example, in predicting citizen engagement, in predicting citizen compliance. So you can adapt that in social, in tax, in the overall citizen services. Another example is maintenance. When you look at asset-intense industries, oil and gas utilities, why not learn from them, get an understanding how to run predictive maintenance, save cost, and deploy those models that are already around? Second question to that is, how do cities want to deploy the latest technologies? Is that based on specific scenarios, which are the most urgent needs in transport, in roads, in the services side? Or is it in a strategic platform approach? And our take here is we strongly recommend to have a big holistic view, set up a holistic strategy, but also start small. And small means start with ideation, with, for example, techniques like design thinking, getting very much into it in a very interdisciplinary approach. And interdisciplinary, it goes along the citizens, it's the private business, it's academia and startups. And I fully agree, yes, in future, it's not going to be about one company, it's going to be about a vital and vibrant ecosystem that is able to change the models, but is also able to work and collaborate together. And there, industry lines are blurring, as well as customers are becoming partners, partners are becoming customers. So that is really a dynamic space. There are open innovation programs, which we, for example, are also running, where we are proving innovation in the IoT space, in a city space, within a very short time frame. 3 months, deploying a model, and then a customer is deciding how is this innovation working. We can't predict a lot of things at that point in time, so we really need, also as companies, to experiment. Another big takeaway for us is, and we talked already about that, touched it a couple of times, is new technologies are all about data. And data is knowledge. Big data can become big knowledge if it is translated the right way. And it can also be used to talk about and think about new business models. We are already seeing the discussions with cities, where cities are coming to us, greenfield ideally, saying, tell me, how can I make money with this city? This was 3-4 years ago not really a question that was raised, but now this is changing. And even cities, we see that currently very much from the US side, on that end are saying, can you tell me what's going to change? Can I monetize data? How am I going to aggregate and bring data to life? And how can I make a business out of that one? So first of all, what you get out of data is, if you aggregate it the right way, is insight and transparency as part of a holistic city strategy. Where does the city stand, what the KPIs are about, and what's its overall performance? And that gives you already means to act on that one, but first of all to understand what is really your position. And we have developed a couple of years ago a so-called boardroom of the future. That was developed for CEOs, CFOs that wanted to look at their business in real time. So drilling down into data, seeing how the KPIs are going. But this is now something that cities also can apply. And that they can apply that not only on the level of a mayor, but also on a level of operations. Because what that brings together is to get people across silos to collaborate. And that is something that technology also adds to, and that means unifying people, giving them the same view on things. For example, in emergency businesses, where we have been running such a project, where 6 different units have unified on one data platform and are now using the same data and acting on the same data stack. And that wasn't really feasible a couple of years ago. So overcoming silos is really important also to point out. But what's also important with data is, if you have KPIs, and a lot of cities are exposing the KPIs to their citizens on a dashboard mode, are sharing with their citizens, how am I doing? What is the status of my project? What's the livability factor here? How am I doing in road construction? How am I in fixing those potholes? How am I in the maintenance process, etc.? Where do I spend your money? This is very much engaging people into a mode of interaction where they also feel that they are part of the system and part of the decision. Couple of remarks on the latest technologies and how they contribute, again, in a set of innovations. Look at analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence in that context. This can help governments to build more citizen-centric programs that ultimately provide personalized citizen experience in a number of ways. If you look at augmented reality, that can improve emergency management, training, transportation planning, healthcare, and tourism. And we have done a couple of concepts, for example, there as well. IoT, the whole stack of big data that was already addressed, is a tsunami on one hand side, but also, if it's aggregated, can help better manage and evaluate infrastructure, traffic, and environmental needs. Predictive analytics have helped government organizations to predict the needs of their citizens and plan accordingly. And this is coming pretty much massive. We see that for example, in the area of taxation on the revenue side. And blockchain can help replace less secure data sharing methods and reduce activities in increasing transparency to make sure that this also drives benefits for the cities to switch from keeping lights on to switch more into innovation. So important from our perspective is, what we see with cities more and more is, cities needs to understand the backbone, to streamline there, to make it resilient, and to make it really stable but also fast to execute, build a holistic strategy, thinking about what's my pressing need, how can I start, but also where do I want to develop it to, and also think about data is a huge asset, and data should be used by the cities for the benefit of the citizens and the cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Miss Isabella talked a lot of things. It's difficult for me to summarize what she actually said in a few points, but I still try to summarize. Okay. She said, according to what he said, the new technology is a kind of pressure on people, on cities. But new technology gives people and the cities solutions to dealing with all these problems that we are facing. New technologies can change the business models, can shaping the way of city development. But when the city try to adopt a new technology, should be in a way to consider holistically. And in all this process of decision making or affecting with each other, people, government, all the participants in the city are very important because they are affecting with each other. They have to be collaborating with each other. They have to share a lot of things like data and even the other technologies, a lot of things in the information. So when we're dealing with the new technologies, holistic solution, even more important than a single technology solution. Thank you. Am I right? Thank you. Let me introduce Mr. Zhang Jirong, Deputy Director General from Hong Kong.
Thank you, Mr. Xu. Has been very exciting to listen to all of you gentlemen and lady. So inspiring. I mean, like when I came in today to talk about smart cities, because I am not a mayor, I don't have a city that I can run. I'm not a company, I don't really have a business model or like income-driven, like mentality. So I was thinking, like what can we do in a smart city? And today, really like sitting here listening to the three of you, I found it is very, very inspiring because with all these challenges lies ahead of us in terms of sustainable development and urbanization, this smart city idea really being an equal combination of advanced technology, engaged citizens, and implementation that really does provide a solution. And today I actually learned that being smart is not just about these things. It's also about a mentality, a concept, a philosophy that you shared with us, that being a holistic approach is not just about the methods that you are deploying, but also about how you come about this problem. So in a process of this scale, I believe that we are here to unify or to require the partnership of all stakeholders, including the public sector, the private sector, and the NGOs like ourselves. So I am here today speaking on behalf of the Finance Center for South-South Cooperation. Many of you may know that we are one of the organizers of this Bridge for City events. And this is the second time that we co-organize this event with the UNIDO. So a few words about ourselves. We are a non-for-profit NGO with the special consultative status with the UN Economic and Social Council. Our mission is to promote South-South cooperation under the SDG framework. And our aims are to facilitate production capability cooperation, development experience exchange, and provide financial services. So as I said, I am not running a city, I am not running a business. As an NGO, we see ourselves as facilitators. We see ourselves as a thread that is helping all of these dots to connect. So here we are doing our bit in contributing in the building of the cities tomorrow. And here I want to share with you some of our efforts in mobilizing the core resources, namely information, people, and capital. So first we talk about information exchange. Exchange is at the core of South-South cooperation, and exchange is really the foundation of this idea of increased connectivity under the Belt and Road Initiative. Technology innovations, policies, experience. Today we talk about philosophies, data. A lot of ideas are worth spreading. Today I actually listened to, I think 2 of you talked about the word leapfrogging. And I am a big believer in leapfrogging. I think that's where the magic happens. Really, when a country or a city learns from another, and they don't have to go through that step-by-step organic growth, but immediately catch up to the newest technology. I think that's very exciting. Look at the shared cars from Uber to Didi in China to Gojek in Indonesia. And now we talk about shared bicycles, shared power banks, these kind of things really quickly spread around the world. And that's really amazing. And that is part of the aim and purpose why we organize forums like this, is for people to really have a chance to have increased awareness of what is happening around us, and also to brainstorm ideas and share effective modalities of sustainable development and urbanization. So today, even I learned so many new stuff, so exciting. I think it's amazing. So beside this event, we're also building several other platforms. We're also co-organizing an annual Silk Road Forum that is we're co-organizing with the UNDP and the Development Research Center of State Council of China. That one is more focused on the Belt and Road, increased connectivity. So other than these international forums that we let people talk to each other, we also take an active role in talking to stakeholders ourselves. For example, we work directly with governments and countries to provide them with strategic advice on building, building on some of the China's experience and especially in its development in the past 30 years. So last year, we worked very closely with the Djibouti government in providing them with strategic advice on the building of industrial parks and special economic zones. Also, many of you may have participated in our report launching earlier today during the lunchtime. That is our effort as a think tank to invite experts around the world to share their views on the history and the new trends of South-South cooperation. So all of these efforts are towards building a network of knowledge and experience that really help different stakeholders to learn from each other. So that's information. So the information, the experience is there. We need people to act on them and to implement. So for that, we're placing, again, a very strong importance on education. I think education is the method to empower citizens to be equipped to participate in the transforming of their own cities. So the Finance Center, we have a sister organization that is called the South-South Education Foundation. That is a charity registered in Hong Kong, dedicates itself in promoting educational and cultural exchange, talent training in the wider South countries. So every year, these two organizations, they co-hosting a training program that is called the South-South Education Program for Economic and Finance, in which we invite around 25 government officials and business leaders in the financial industry to come to China and stay in Beijing for 8 days, really living and breathing what China is about today. And also we give them an opportunity to not only listen to lectures, but also to do field trips to banks, regulators, financial industry, and real industries. So they have a comprehensive introduction of China's development experience from a financial perspective. So we're really looking to expand that training program to other areas, such as data analysis and strategic capacity building. So in addition to training, we're also doing other charitable projects, such as we have a One Laptop, One Dream program, where we donate computers to students of the Global South, which really try to help to bridge that technology gap and to enable those students in poverty to link with the world like the rest of us, like using smartphones. We have all of these luxuries, they might not. So we also launched a scholarship together with the UN ASCAP in Asia Pacific, which sponsors graduate students to study remote sensing technology from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So that is a satellite technology which monitors what's going on on the ground, on the earth, and that has wide application in urban planning and disaster management. So we hope those students can take those technology and those knowledge back to their country and contributing to the urbanization of their countries. So by sharing the idea of sustainable development with the crowd and offering them the access to technology and advanced knowledge, we would like to see them contributing to the next generation's development and pass on the commitment of sustainability to their peers and to their descendants. So, yeah, we talk about information and human capital, but there is something that we cannot not talk about, which is funding. And as our name suggests, the Finance Center for South-South Cooperation, we're actually very much focused on financing. It's widely agreed that we cannot rely only on public funding or traditional forms of aids to achieve the SDGs. We need to engage the private sectors and the private sector investors. I myself come from an investment background, so for a lot of the, many times I hear people asking, oh, I have this project, do you think anyone's going to invest in it? And I often ask myself, if I have money, would I invest in that? What are the obstacles I have to overcome to really make that decision, to pull that trigger that I'm going to put money in that pot? And we summarized that into a few different aspects. So the first thing is probably the opportunity. If I have money, where do I invest? If I am a company, if I want to expand, say like outside of China, where do I go? And that builds on to the first point that I made, information. Information is also equally or even more important for investors and investees to link. Like today we see, Mobike, Ofo, those shared bicycles, they're also here participating in this event. If they were going to go out of China, like go into the South countries, not like Vienna, not like Washington, if they were going to, say, like Indonesia, are they comfortable doing that? And who are the ones who might invest in them? Then that comes to the second question, risk and reward balance. For risks, I think private sectors are not actually against the risks. They're actually risk-prone because only if they take risk, they take return. But I think they are not willing to take any risks that's not business risks. So for example, policy risks, political risk, legal risk, these kind of risks that we as an NGO are trying to help companies to minimize those risks. With that said, they're also looking at returns. So a lot of these investment projects in the South countries are regarded as non-market, not so attractive because they're usually associated with long-term return and probably not much of the short-term benefit. So there, we are undergoing an endeavor to encourage them to look beyond just the monetary return, but also the social impacts. So when there are positive social impact of investment into smart city technologies, should they be rewarded or at least should they realize that? So for that, we're also working with the relevant UN agencies to create a system that recognizes, quantifies, and certifies those social impacts in order for companies not only to receive the return in financial form, but also to feel recognized by the government appreciated by the people and also feel good for themselves. So with all of these mechanisms in place, then we are comfortable, or we're confident to then go out to look for finance for these companies. So we raise, say, like project specific funds from both the SOEs and the private sectors to link the interested investors with the projects. Also, we connect projects to a lot of China's national efforts, such as the CDB, the China Exim Bank, or the Silk Road Fund that was built specifically to support the Belt and Road Initiative. So these partnerships really can draw international capital, talent, and technology towards developing countries while creating commercial values for different stakeholders. So as I said, we are a facilitator. We want to learn from all different stakeholders. So I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share with you some of our efforts and look forward to discuss with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chang. Ms. Chang introduced the organization as an NGO, how to aware people to participate to sustainable activities by education and training, how they help people communicate the experiences from different places together, how they help people to share ideas. She finally introduced the organization's funding policy, how they, funding the projects. Thank you very much. Since the time is ending, so I have to suspend here. My introduction cannot be implemented this time. So I will take a very short period of time to summarize this session's discussion according to speaker's introduction to dealing with all the challenges for sustainable development of the cities. Of course, we need, different technologies and technical solutions, but we still need to have holistic approaches to make all these kind of solutions or decisions socially acceptable, politically acceptable, and financially sustainable. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult.
Mr. Lin, can I make one last remark?
Okay.
Because I'm afraid that it would be unfair to wrap this session if we only thought of cities as hard power, so mostly concrete and gadgets and investment and infrastructure. And the reason why I'm concerned, and I wanted to make this last remark, is because of the example of Seestadt. Now, Seestadt is Vienna's Pleasantville. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. If you haven't seen it, then see the film called Pleasantville, but it really is a nice place. Well, the curious thing about Seestadt is that unlike the rest of Vienna, this masterpiece of urban architecture and sustainable city, in the last elections, for the most part, voted for some of the xenophobic political groups in this country. So is it really only about hard power, but is it also about soft power? So is it okay if people just live in nice places where everything can be done digitally and the tram comes on time and there's enough square meters of green for everyone and we click all the statistical boxes if we're getting basically a cultural ghetto? So I think it would be an awful mistake if we only thought of cities as a congregation of infrastructure that ticks the boxes of the SDGs, but completely misses out the essence of a human being. To have Vienna's Pleasantville, vote overwhelmingly against those of a different religion, of a different color, of a different ethnic background, I think we have really failed this experiment. And I think it would be a drastic mistake if the only take from this session is that the right architecture and infrastructure and urban planning builds a great city. Without the soft power, the culture, the passion for humanity that goes into these places, if I have to pick, I'd much rather choose an underdeveloped city with the right heart and the right mind than an ultra-developed Pleasantville that has missed the point of what humanity and city is all about. Cities are places where we show up for life, where we show up for public life. No one shows up for life in the village. I bet you before anyone here started to work for the UN, you probably got recruited in a city, any city, but in a city, not in your home village or the grandparents. So if cities are places where we show up for public life, I think the key word is public and what the public values as important. So that was my only last remark. And now my conscience is safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your final remarks as a politician. Thank you. Thank you for all your participation, for your timing.